Welcome back to Footballology. Up next, we have the New Orleans Saints for their offseason grade. Now, when it came to the Saints last year, we knew that this was going to be Drew Brees' last hurrah. We heard the rumblings, him retiring, going to NBC, the contract, blah, blah, blah. We heard all that. When he came out and he did what he could. He did get banged up, and that's when we start to see Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. And we seen this the year prior with Teddy Bridgewater, and they gave him some quality reps. Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill did. But for the most part, the Saints team felt like it was just never there. But because of the talent of the roster of guys like Alvin Kamara, and you think about their offense line, which is probably, in my opinion, top five, if not top three in the NFL, their defensive front was really strong too with Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Trey Henderson gave them some good play. And then you think about their secondary player having a top five corner in Marshawn Lattimore, having a safety in Malcolm Jenkins who can do a lot, and Marcus Williams did a lot. You had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson give him a lot of play. Like, you had a lot of guys on this roster play at a high level. Quan Alexander. So, like, you had all these guys, as you can see on the screen, give them a lot of quality play on a consistent basis. And so I think that's was one thing to help this team out offensively. Really was just Alvin Kamara and the boys, if we're being honest. Like, and everybody else just kind of followed suit. It was cool. Bringing in Emmanuel Sanders last year definitely gave them an opportunity to have that number two receiver, and it showed up sometimes. But I think Emmanuel Sanders wound up getting hurt at one point and really didn't give them a lot of games like they were hoping to. Sutton Smith gave them a couple of games in Emmanuel Sanders absent. But overall, it was just the talent of the roster, and I think Sean Payton's coaching, which we're going to finally see do it all over again. Like, we're gonna finally see him do it all over again. To really solidify himself as one of those elite coaches in the league. Not saying he wasn't prior to Drew Brees or anything like that, but when him and Drew Brees linked up in New Orleans, we were like, this is interesting. And they've been dominant ever since they've been there, especially in the South. Drew Brees has been penciled in for 4,500 yards every season. They've had one of the most elite passing attacks. And then just recently, they start to kind of get back to what they were trying to do with the run game with Alvin Kamara and some of the guys back there. But the Saints had it all. They were going to the Super Bowl. It was going to be Drew Brees walking off into the sunset, the whole nine. And then they beat Tampa twice, and then they seen Tampa in the division round, and Tampa said, "Nah, we good, big homie." and they pretty much knocked them out of the division round and gave Drew Brees a boot and said, "See you later, dude, big dog." And just that was it. Now moving over to their free agency period, you see they brought back Jameis Winston for one more year. Now I'm not sure if it's 1 year plus what he had on his contract. I'm not sure what his contract was, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But I think it might just be this year, and that'd be a 1 year preview deal. But Jameis Winston looks to play the part. He looks to be trying to take over that role. He's still a young quarterback, and he can possibly give them some really strong reps. If this is what I talked about in my Tampa video with Kyle Trask and Tom Brady, if Tom Brady steps out, can Kyle Trask pick up the slack where Tom Brady has left? And hopefully Jameis Winston can do the same thing, because if that's the case, then the Saints are still going to be a 12-4 team, or I guess not 12-4. They're going to be like a 13-4 team or something like that. You know what I mean? I can't do math, but they're going to be that team that's going to be consistently competitive, especially in their division, because they have the roster for it. It's just what is the quarterback position going to look like? Nick Vannett at the tight end is pretty good for 3 years. I'm really excited for their Alden Chapman guy. Side note. So, but it's interesting bringing back Nick Vannett for 3 years. PJ Williams once again give you another corner, because I think they lost Janoris Jenkins to free agency. And then we're scrolling down. You got Tannen Canapasio. I can't even say his name. Even when he was a Chief, I can't say his name. That's hopefully to create some edge rush or some depth there. Maybe he plays like, they do like a NASCAR package. He comes in and plays a little D tackle for him, give him some interior pass rush. That's good. Sutton Smith, I think, is a really decent outside linebacker who has some good speed. So it's going to be interesting, because they did lose Shelton Rankins. So you see like a lot of these defensive front guys like Huggins and all those guys coming in. Ken Carley at the cornerback position to create more depth there. And I think that this was a very quiet, but I won't say needed, because I don't see anybody on here that's going to jump off and say, hey, I'm the guy that's going to change the Saints team around in one point or another. But this was one of those off seasons that was plainly quiet. They had a really strong roster in place, and so that's what they're really hanging their hat on, is just their roster that they currently have in place. But I feel like they lost some people that they really didn't address, or really didn't go out of their way and take care of. We're going to stop at May, because I know they did some other transactions beyond May, but we're going to stop at Ken Carley. But I feel like that in this little small window of offseason, they really didn't do a lot. They just kind of did enough to keep their roster currently intact. moving over to their draft class. Now, the one pick that kind of throws me off a little bit is the Peyton Turner pick. Now, I'm not hating it. Like, I don't hate Peyton Turner. I don't hate the pick, honestly. But what throws me off is you have Trey Hendrickson still there. You got Cam Jordan, who I get is getting a little bit older. But you lost Sheldon Rankins to, I want to say free agency, to the Jets. And so now it's like, what are you going to do to replace him? Now, granted, he didn't play a lot of games for you guys in the middle of the defense and everything like that. Maybe Peyton Turner slides in there. Like I said, maybe they're trying to do a little bit more speed up front, and maybe that's a thing. But Peyton Turner in the first round, I feel like the Saints were one of those teams that was not technically in the luxury pick standard. Like, they still needed to actually make some sensible picks. So, but they went out and got Peyton Turner, and I was like, maybe. And so you get Peyton Warner at the not Peyton. You get Pete Warner in the second round at the linebacker position, which is interesting as well because I think they lost Quan Alexander, so that's cool to me as well. Now that's an addressing a need on the roster, or maybe a guy can come in and give you some quality reps and do something. Now the steal of the draft, in my opinion, they got two steals obviously, but the one big steal, Paulson Adebo. I think he had a really strong pro day. I don't think he played in 2020. I think he opted out, I want to say, in Stanford, but I'm not sure. But he had a really strong pro day, and I was really excited for him. I thought he was going to go somewhere around the second round. Not quite first round, but definitely late second round, somewhere around there. And then you see they end up getting him in the third round. I think that's a really quality pick for him, for the Saints, and I think that he's a guy that could possibly step up big in that number 2 role and hopefully push, whoever it was going to be the number two starting corner. I haven't heard any stories. I really haven't done the research as far as how he's doing in the Saints camp. But I think, honestly, realistically, I think that he's a guy that had it. Like I said, he had a strong pro day. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to look in this position now. And hopefully he can actually turn it up and become that number 2 starting corner for the Saints. Ian Book at the quarterback position in the 4th round, which is interesting. He's a smaller guy, nobody wants to say it, but everybody wants to say it. Maybe he's Drew Brees, but they need to adjust the quarterback position one way or another, and I feel like they probably felt Book was the guy. So that's really interesting. I'm not sure what Sean Payton and the boys are thinking over there, but they know something I don't. I personally would have tried to address something else on this roster, especially if I have Jameis Winston, but you never know. You got to have some kind of insurance policy, right? And my favorite pick, the pick of the whole entire draft, the steal of the whole entire draft, my boy Landon Young from Kentucky. Now, I did a whole video on Landon Young because I felt like that he was a top prospect that could have easily went 3rd round, maybe 4th round, somewhere around there, but 3rd round for sure. And he wound up getting picked up in the 6th round. I mean, he's, I think, a really strong left tackle candidate. Now, granted, they're not in any position to need any tackles. They got Ron Renchek, who's probably top 3 right tackle in the league, and then they also got Teron Armstead, who's a really solid left tackle as well. So like, they're not in any position to need a tackle, but hey, if the time comes and Landon Young has to step up, I think he's the perfect guy for the job, and I'm really excited for him. I'm excited that they picked him up, and I think he's in a perfect team. He's going to be in a team where he's going to be able to learn and mentor, or get mentored by a lot of good players, and hopefully step in and be an elite left tackle. That's a big word, elite left tackle, but I really like Landon Young. I think he was that good. I think he was that quality of a player. And then you see they addressed the wide receiver position in the 7th round, which was really decent, but I still, for me personally, like I said, Peyton Turner pick just didn't sit right with me, so I'm really interested to see how that's going to translate into better defense for them, because he's an edge guy that they didn't quite need, and I feel like that they could have did a little bit more with that pick, me personally. But overall, I think it was a really solid draft. With all that being said, I feel like the Saints deserve a solid B plus. The one thing that didn't sit right with me, and the reason why I didn't give them like an A, is because I'm not sure what the interior of the defense is going to look like this year. I like their secondary. I think they're going to have a really strong secondary, and some of the things they did there. Linebacking core, I think, is going to be competitive 100%. But the front, obviously, got Cam Jordan on one side and Trey Hendrickson on the other side. And you're going to have some rotational guys in there. But what is the middle of that defense where the D tackles sit? DeMario Davis sits in the middle of that defense, which definitely helps things. But what does those D tackles look like? What does that triangle of that defense, the other 2 points of that defense look like? Because that's what's going to really, I think, make or break this defense ultimately. Offensive line wise, they didn't need to do much there. Had to really get there. The question mark at the receiver, at the quarterback position, we are all hoping Jameis turns it around and comes out and just makes everybody eat crow. So that's something I think that the Saints are banking on too, Sean Payton. If not, they got Taysom Hill. So I understand why they didn't go hard at the the quarterback position. Now, the other position that I feel like was really weak was not specifically Michael Thomas because we knew what he was, but the other receivers. Now Sutton Smith definitely come out and gave them some play, so maybe they felt good about that. But what does that look like? We got Adam Troutman at tight end, so I mean maybe they were like, oh, maybe we got some other guys that can step up as far as being receivers. I'm gonna come right out of the backfield, things like that. But I feel like they didn't address their needs directly. They kind of dressed around them, and hopefully that they take care of themselves, because once again they may have guys on their roster that they're 100% comfortable with and we're just not seeing them for ourselves, and Sean Payton knows something we don't, which is definitely true. But I think as of right now, a really solid B, a really strong solid B is what they deserve for their offseason. I think they didn't need to do much already to a roster that had a lot of talent in place already. So I'm really excited to see what the Saints are going to look like. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you feel like they had a strong offseason? Is there a transaction that I didn't give enough credit to that you feel like had a bigger impact or is going to have a bigger impact on their season that I'm not giving credit for? Like, just let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm going to be looking out for the comments. And if you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go and hit that subscribe button today and become a footballologist. And stay safe, football fans.